So in the previous video, we implemented an app that uses a database to store data and also sessions to dynamically display the questions. So we are going to build upon that. So if you didn't watch that video, go back and watch that video because we aren't going to build a new app this time. We're just going to copy the previous app. All right. So I'm going to copy the code base, code 3, to a new directory. So down here in the terminal, we're going to say CPR for recursive code 3. We're going to copy it to a directory called code 4. All right. If you don't have your virtual environment activated, you can activate it by saying source webdev ben activate, and that'll change the prompt. Okay. I'm going to close this. And then I am going to cd into our code 4 directory, and I'm going to delete some things. So I'm going to delete the old database that we created because we're going to make some changes to the database that we created previously. And given that we already have some data in the database, we'd have to migrate the database, which is another video. So I'm going to delete the instance directory, which is where our database is. I'm also going to delete the cache. I'd also say that instead of copying code 3 to code 4, we could use our revision control program like GitHub. But again, that's another video. All right, so now we can open up the app.py inside of code 4 and make our additions, because in this video, we are going to go over user authentication. All right, so you open up your app.py in code 4, and we're going to make some additions here. First, we have from Flask, import Flask, session render template requests, redirect, and URL 4. The reason we're not going to rebuild a new app now, the reason is because we built apps before. You guys should be familiar with how to create Flask apps because we did it in different ways, and we're just going to build upon the previous app. We're going to import the same functions, and this is a class, except for we're going to add the flash function as well. You can leave this line the same on line 2, but on line 3, we are going to import some more things for our user authentication addition. From Wurzelk, it's German for tool. Security, import generate password hash, and we're going to also import check password hash. Okay, I keep this the same. I'm going to actually turn on some additional logging for our database. I'm going to say app config, and then in the brackets here, I'm going to say SQL alchemy. I can also spit out additional information for debugging purpose. All right, so we already have a response class, and what we want to do is actually add a user class. We're going to update our response class as well, which is why we deleted the database, because the way that the response class is going to be defined is going to change based upon adding users. So we're going to say our user class is going to use the DB model as well, just like our response class. We have ID equals DB column. It's going to be a DB integer, primary key equals true. The username will be a DB column, DB string with 80 characters. It has to be unique, so unique will be set to true. Nullable, so it can't be empty, will be set to false. And have password hash, basically the password that will be encrypted. So password hash, the encrypted password will be set to DB column, and we'll have a DB string, capital S string 120. This can't be null either, so we're going to say nullable is going to be set to false. We are going to actually have admin users as well, so I'm going to have a Boolean here. So is admin, this is going to be in DB column as well, and unlike the other ones, this is going to be Boolean, and Booleans work the same way in databases or SQL as in Python. True or false, right? The default is going to be false. All right, and that's it for the data inside of the user class, but we're going to set up some methods as well. So we're going to say dbdf set password. So password has the parameters, and then self.password hash is set to generate password hash. That's why we imported that earlier. Okay, password. Okay, so this is when we're setting the password. We're going to create a hash. Okay, and then it's gonna assign the hash. to the column here. All right, so we need another method here, and we need this method to check the password. So basically, we need to decrypt the password after it's applied by the user to make sure that it is correct. This is going to be a one-liner. You're going to just say return check password hash. Again, this is the other function that we added to the top and we imported. Okay, so this method that we just created is just sending over to the check password hash function that we imported, and it takes two arguments: the password hash and the password that the user supplies to this function, to this method, and it checks to see that they match. Okay. All right. So that's it for the user model, which will be transferred into a table. Next, what we want to do is make some additions to our response model. So we want to track the user ID inside of the response. So which user actually submitted the response. So user ID, DB column, and DB integer to be foreign key is going to be user ID, and this is going to be null set to false as well. Also going to say user set to db.relationship is going to be the user class, back reference equal to responses. Okay, similar to the video that you watched in the previous videos about SQL when they had the basketball team. So each basketball team can have many players, and so each user can have many questions or in answer pairs. Okay. All right. So let's go down here and make some additions. We need to add a couple more routes. Now that we have a user class, we need to add the ability for users to log in. So we need to add some routes. Okay. So our first new route, and I'm just going to copy the survey route and make some changes because it's going to be very similar to this. It's going to be login. All right. So def login be the function. F request dot method is post. We are going to set the user to user.query filter by, and then username quest.form username first. So we're going to query the user database, and this should actually be two equal signs here. We're going to query the user database for the username that is sent over in the form here. Okay. Then f user and user.check password tree, and we're going to also do a request form and get the password that was sent over. Password. If the user is correct, or this returns a true, basically back to user variable, then we are going to set up the session information. So in the previous video, we had a session just for the questions, and we're going to set up session information for the user. So user ID to user.id, session username, it's going to be set to username, and then session is admin, it's going to be set to user is admin. Okay, you return redirect URL for the survey. Okay, so we send them straight to the survey after they log in, after we set up all this session information. All right, after this is not true, we're going to flash invalid username or password. So flash allows us to just set an error message without going to a different page. It'll just update the page that they're on the login page, and it'll tell them to put in more information. All right, we're going to return f. This is being accessed as a GET request and not a post. We're going to return the template. Render template login HTML, and we'll create that template later. All right, so that's the login route. Now we need a register route, very similar to login routes. I'm just going to paste that survey again and just change it to register. So this is the register route for registering a user, because you'll need to do that before you can log in. Def register f request dot method is equal to post. Do some similar things here. We are going to, in this case, we need to add to the database. Let's say user, set to user, username, request the form. So I'm going to grab from the form whatever they put in for their preferred username, the username. And then once we have this object, we're going to set the password to request form. Password, whatever password they sent over. Again, that's just using the method that we created here. Set password. It creates a hash and saves it into the password column. All right. After those two lines, we've set the username and the password. We also need to check whether or not the user is an admin. An admin, the reason that we're setting up an admin is because when we go to the results page, we want to be able to see all the user's information. But if you're not an admin, you should only see your information in the results page. Is admin Now, this isn't the most secure way of creating an admin account, but we'll do it this way for the purposes of this tutorial, and you can just disable this once you've created your admin account. All right, so now that we have those things set, we need to commit this object to the database. So we're going to say dbSession.add user db session commit. Okay, so that will take our object that we created and apply it to the database table as a row in the database table using our ORM SQL alchemy. Okay, and we're going to set some session information. Session user ID, and then session username is going to be set to user.username, and session is admin. It's going to be set to user.isAdmin. All right, once we've done all of that, we can return redirect to our survey. So URL for survey. Once they create a user as well, we want to ask them to log in. It'll log them in, and by setting all this session information, and then we can go to the survey. All right, so if they are requesting this as a GET request, so we're going to return the registration. So render templates and register.html. Okay, and it'll show them the form to put in their username and password. Okay, and submit to itself once we create the template. All right, so we need a route for logging out. It's going to be a simpler route, so we don't need to have methods here. Call this logout. Yeah, and let's say log out. Basically need to remove the session information. Session.pop user ID none, and then session.pop is admin. We set to none. If you wanted to, you could also here pop off the current question when they log out, so that when they log back in, they have to answer question 1 again. I'm not going to do this here. So what will happen here is even when they log out, if they don't close the browser and they log back in, it'll start back up from whatever question they were working on before. So after we do that, I'm going to return redirect to URL for the login. So we basically send them back to the login page. Okay, that's the login route, which we set up earlier. All right, so we need to make some additions to the survey route. We don't want people to be able to access the survey route unless they're logged in. So we're going to say f user ID not in session. The session is just a list. When we add things to it, it's just a list that we're adding to. So we're just checking to see if there's a session ID inside of it. And the only way the session ID gets put inside of it is if they logged in or if they just registered. Okay, so if the user ID is not in session, we're going to return redirect to URL for login. And don't worry, if they haven't registered, there'll be a link on the login page to register. So we do need to make some changes based upon the fact that our user information is going to be saved inside of the response table now. So first, we're going to say question ID is set to int. You can actually copy some of this, put it here. I'm going to make some changes to it. All right, question ID is equal to int press.get args current question session.get current question 11. Okay, it's actually going to be pretty much the same. And then question ID. Next, what we want to do is make some changes down here. All right, so we're going to say, we're going to comment this out, and down here, we're going to say question is set to string of question ID. Okay, answer equals answer, question equals a string of the question ID, which we set up here. And then before that, we need to put in the user information. So we're going to say user ID is equal to session user ID. So whatever the user is, whatever it was set to at the beginning of the session. Okay, so we're going to put in their answer, which we got from here, the question, which we got from the session information, and we are going to put in their user information as we create this object, this response object, which we're going to put into the database. So that's still the same. We're also going to commit. So that's also the same. We're also here going to add. We're going to say next question is going to equal to question ID plus 1. All right, so change this from question to next question, and that is pretty much the same. So we want to make sure now that next question is greater than 5, and then we will pop off the current question and go to the complete route. We also need to make some changes here. We are going to say we're going to remove this information because we incremented it up here. So we can remove this, and we'll go back to the survey just as before. And since we set it up already, we can say current question is going to be set to whatever the next question number is. Okay. All right. So we'll go back to the survey route, which will be a get request, and it'll go to the next question, unless it's greater than 5, in which case we'll complete. Okay. Next, what we want to do, now that the survey is finished, we want to add something similar to the top of the complete route so that you don't get to the complete route either unless you're logged in. So I copy this, go to our complete route, and add this if statement. Okay, so it'll redirect to login as well. Similarly, we don't want them to go to the results page without logging in. So results, so we're going to add that as well to the results. We do need to add a lot to results. So we need to be able to show for the admin all the answers and questions for every user. But for the user, when they're logged in, when they go to the results page, it's just going to show their answers to the questions. Now, ordinarily, the way that you would do this is by using a SQL join, but since I haven't taught you much SQL beyond the last video that briefly explained it, I'm actually going to do this inside of Python because you know how Python works a bit better. So we're going to do the request similar to the way that we were doing it before. We're going to request everything. So we're going to fetch all the responses. Then we're going to set up a empty list. Again, we're doing this inside of Python. You would really just use a join inside of a database, but that's for another tutorial. Responses, all right, user responses. It's going to be an empty list. All right, so we are going to say f session dot get is admin. I'm going to display something a little bit different here. We are going to say for response in response user, it's going to be set to the user query get response user ID. So we're going to get user for each response, basically, is what this is going to do. And then we are going to say user responses append. Remember, we created this empty list earlier. We are going to append a dictionary for each response. So we're going to say username, and the key for the next one is going to be question, and the value is going to be from response question, and then make sure we're spelling this right, response dot question. Make sure you put a comma between it's still a dictionary. You have to have a comma between each one. And then answer will be the next key, and then response dot answer. Okay. All right. So that's the end of the dictionary that's added to the list. And we will do this for every single response that we got back from the response query. And with the response query that we got, the query that we did was to get all the responses, basically. So we'll go through every single response. We will match it to the user ID, and then we will add each one of them with the name and the question and response as a dictionary to the list. All right, now what we need to do is, if they are not admin, so else here, we're gonna return a simpler list. I'm gonna say user response, and we're gonna do a list comprehension here. So it's going to be also going to be a list of a dictionary. So we're going to say question response dot question, and then answer response dot answer. Okay, so those will be the dictionary additions, but the list comprehension is going to be here. We're going to say similar to the for loop here. List comprehension is basically just a collapsed for loop with an if statement in it. We haven't done them a lot, but we have done them in the past. So we're going to say for response in responses, just like we did before. Again, responses is up here. It was the query. For response in responses, if response dot user ID is equal to the session user ID. Okay, so this will only return the responses that match this user ID, okay, as opposed to this, which will get every single user ID and add all of the usernames and questions to the user responses list that we created. So this is only searching for, through all the responses, the things that match the user ID. Okay, and then the end of this is going to be basically the same. So template, render template results.html responses is going to be pretty much the same, except for now we have to say user responses because that's the name of the list that we created. All right, we're of course going to have to make a lot of changes to our template to process all that information. Assuming we don't have any typos, look through here, because we do have a little squiggly here. Responses to, oh yeah, this is unnecessary. In a list comprehension, you don't need to call the colon. If it were a regular for loop, you would. F response ID. Yeah, okay, that looks good. All right, next, famous words. If there are no typos here, we're finished with the app. Now, what we need to do is start changes to our templates. I'm going to make a quick change to the base template, and then we'll move on from there. So base is going to be mostly the same, but we're going to make some changes to the block at the top so that we actually see when we are logged in. So the header block. So we're going to say, we're going to create an H4 here and a div inside of the H4. And we're going to say logged in as, and then we'll get this session information. Session user name. Remember, we set that when we log in or we register, right? We'll get that session information. And then we will also put a link here so they can log out. So get the URL for log out. Okay. And then just say log out. All right. So they'll be able to log out. That'll be at the top of every page now because every page uses this template. So you can save that. And next, let's go to our results page and make some changes there. And of course, we need to create our log in our register templates, and we'll do that shortly. All right, so our results page is going to have the most changes here. We're going to say, I have an H2 here inside the block. I'm going to say survey results overview, and we are going to get rid of this. We might be able to use some of it, but we're not going to use ULs anymore. We're going to create a table for this information. So table, I'm going to cut this and I'll paste it later on when I actually need it. All right, table head, I'm going to do TR for table row. Table rows are going to change whether or not this is a admin looking at this page or not. So I'm going to say if session get is when, then we're going to add the table header for the user and the if there. So we'll have a row for the user. If this is the admin. If not, we'll just have these two rows, the question and the answer. So we're going to do table header for question and table header for answer. Okay, so that sets up the top of our table, and now we need to set up the body of the table. Okay, now we can paste what we had before and make some changes. Okay, so we got the response. We're going to say for response and responses. Remember, we sent over responses down here. So what we're going to do here is say, first we need to account for being an admin. So I can paste this back in here, remove these LIs. All right, so you have TR for the table row. Now I'm going to say, we're going to have an if statement here. I'm just going to say if session.get is admin, and we're going to do a TD. TD is table data, and this will be this will be response name, which will display the username for each user, and then and now, since this isn't going to be set as a list anymore, we're just going to put TD here and a TD here, and we'll move these inside of the TD. This Control X to cut, Control P to paste. All right, and the for here, fine, and the table body, and then end the table. Okay, that looks pretty much like it. I'm going to put a note up here, comment about where we are. So this is in templates / result HTML. You can press Control / to make this into a comment, an HTML to comment. All right, so that's the results page. You can look at the survey page. The survey page really isn't going to change. This is going to be pretty much the same. What I'm going to do is put similar comment up here, templates / survey.html, Control / makes that into a comment, save that and close survey, assuming there are no typos and everything will be added to results, close results. And now we need to create our login and our register page. So click on templates here, create a new document, and say login.html. Close this. What you can do is go over here and copy survey, and we're going to make some changes. We're going to paste survey in here. Of course, all of this is going to be different. So you can move this form and also this in block. Okay. This is of course login, not survey. I change the title to login. Say please login. Let's save this. And then while I'm doing this, I'm going to actually create the register as well. Register.html. And before I start adding things to it, I can just copy. The register is going to be very similar as well. So register. So we'll come back to the register. Let's finish up the login. You know what? I'm going to remove this header and actually put an H2 tag here, and then we'll update our styles. All right. So H2, and then we would need to create a form. Action is going to be submitting to itself. So we're going to say URL for it will be posts. Label is going to be for username. Name input is going to be ID username, and then the name will be username. This will be required, and the label for password. and it will be password colon, and put a colon in this one. Then the input field will be also another input field is going to be password, and ID will be password, and the name will be password. Okay, and this is required as well. And we need a button. The register form is going to be very similar to this, so I'm just going to copy this in a second. Submit, that's the type of button, and then it'll just say login instead of submit. Okay, at the very end, we need to have an option to register. So I'll just say don't have an account. You're going to put a link here or register. Now, we've been doing this a lot over the last several videos. Why am I told this instead of putting /register? Why am I typing all? Actually, just notice that in type up here, you need to close off the Jinja instead of /login. Putting /login up here or putting a /register up here will work. But if we change anything in the app, then it will break it. We want to be able to make sure that if we change the app, we don't have to change all the templates as well. So if it just goes to the login route, it goes to the register route. If we change where the route is, say if we change login to /user login, we don't have to go over here and change it to /user login. It's just going to the route. It's just going to the login route. Okay. All right. So what we will say here is register here. Okay. All right. So that'll end content block. I am going to copy all of this. We'll paste it over here and just make some changes. Like I said, I'm going to remove please register. Put register here. All right. Okay. And now what I will do is make some small changes. So this is going to go to register instead of again. Still a post method user that this is pretty much all the same. All this is the same. And then we're going to have a admin. Again, this is something that you'd probably remove after you created a admin account. So label for is admin. I'm going to say admin. Then we will say input, and type is going to be checkbox. So we'll just have a checkbox about whether or not this is going to be an admin account. ID is going to be is admin. And the name is going to be is admin, and this won't be required. All right, and down here in the button, you say register. Okay. All right, and down here where we had do you have an account, we're going to say, or where we said don't have an account, we're going to say already have an account. And then if they do, we want to send them to the login page. We're going to say log in here instead of register here. Okay. All right. So finally, what we need to do is make some changes to our styles. We have our base template. You have our login template, we have a register, results, and survey. And we need to make some changes to our styles to accommodate some of the things that we did in our results template. Okay, most of this is going to stay the same. We are going to actually add H2 here for our register page. Remember, we created some H2 tags, and I'm actually going to add H4 here as well. Okay, then form is basically the same. Our input is mostly going to stay the same. I'm going to add some padding here. I'm going to say padding is going to be set to 8 pixels. The button is going to be the same for the most part, for none 5 pixels. Okay, hover is going to be the same. I'll leave these list elements even though we're not using them right now in case we want to expand the application and use them later. But we do need to have something for the table headers in table data. We will say border is going to be 1 pixel solid, and it will be color DDD. The padding will be 8 pixels. The text align will be left, and the table header background color will be F2, F2, F2. So that's basically it. Now, what we can do is test our app. But as says before in the previous video, because the database isn't created, because we deleted it, we need to execute it directly. So we're going to say Python 3 app.py. Okay, we spelled foreign key wrong here. So up here, we created we added to our class here. This should be foreign key. Save that, clear, run. All right, so this is complaining response user I could not find. All right, so this is an issue with the foreign key as well. All right, when typing this, I mixed up the session, which is user_ID with this. This is user.id. So this is referencing the user ID right here, which is not user_ID, it's just ID. All right, it's referencing that data, that value. Let's save this, clear. and we will run it again. Okay, we got it. All this extra information was first, the database is being created, and the reason you're getting a lot more information this time than you did the last time is because up here, remember, we turned on Echo, so it actually shows what's happening with the database more. All right, we're going to open the browser to go to our application. This over here, go to the survey. It should send you to the login page. All right, so our survey application, and we can't really log in because we don't have an account. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an account. I'm going to create a regular account. I'm going to say admin. Sorry, I'm going to create an admin account. I'm going to say admin and set a password here. And I'm going to check the admin box to say I want to register. This is an admin account. All right, so I'm going to put in some information in black. Question is an invalid argument for string. All right, so we have another error here. New response sync, an issue with our app. On what line? It's in the survey section. Let's see, do we have a typo here? I think we do. This should say user underscore ID equals session ID underscore ID. That's correct. Question string. Now we have too much. We have too much going on here. So this is just, you type that twice. Question ID. Don't need that anchor. Sure. Parentheses. I'm not sure how that happened. Maybe I pasted twice. Question is going to be set to string of question ID, which we set up here. Okay. Now I'm going to save this. Technically, we don't have to restart this. I know we've been doing that, but it should automatically, the app should automatically register that we updated. Go back, refresh the page, put in black next. Oh, you know what? Current, we have another issue here. It says redirect got unexpected current question. This is saying current question. This is incorrect. This should be a parameter for URL4. So let's jump back over here inside of the survey route. All of this, Control X should be inside of here, comma. Move this, save. You can see down there it reloaded after the save. So we can go back here to the app, refresh, resend. All right, so it added its database to rock climbing. I'm going to say I'm going to say hover, and I'm going to say Dune for my book, and that's the end of the survey. Okay, results. Let's see. We have an issue with results. This looks like it's an issue with the template. It's complaining about Ginger. Unexpected token. I'm missing a percent sign right there. All right, so let's go back over to the results template. Close register and that, and then go back over to the results. And if we need a percent sign there, and let's check the rest to see if we have any other errors. Nothing that's standing out. We can save that, and just like saving the app, we can just do a refresh over here without restarting the app. Okay, so we have the user, the question, and the information. This is probably saved twice because we refreshed the app. All right, so I'm going to log out. And I'm going to register a new user. This is going to be just a regular user. Right? And we're going to go through the application as well. We're going to say red here. We're going to say the hobby is cycling. Let's say favorite food is pizza. Movie genre, sci-fi. Book, kill a mocking. Okay. And now, as the regular user, say I'm logged in as RHTA, log out, and it only see my answers here, right? Which is fine. This is what we expect for a regular user, right? If I log out and log back in as the admin, let's try that again. There is something wrong with the login route. Let's see. All right, so let's go. Remember, for the first two times that we logged in, we didn't really log in. We used the register, which automatically logs us in. So let's go to the login route. So it is complaining about this line. Yeah. Oh, you know what? This is on the wrong place. This is first here. All right, so what this is doing a query, and we're looking for the first username that responds. Okay. Really overkill, because up here when we created the user, the name, actually, yeah, the username has to be unique. So this is just overkill in case we get multiple usernames, but that's never going to be the case because it has to be unique. We'd get a database error if we tried to create another user called admin or another user called RHTA. But anyway, that's why that wasn't working properly. This dot first needed to be out on the outside. All right, so let's save this and go back over to our app. Remember, we were logging in as admin. Okay, I'm not going to go through the survey again. I just want to go back to the results page and show you that I can see the results for admin and also the results for RHTA. Just because we had to log out and log back in, we've actually tested all of our pages now. We tested the login page, the register page, the results page, and also the survey. So everything works. And that's it for this one. I'll see you in the next one.